In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. What is my hair doing? Good Lord. Welcome to another session 26, as it goes. Another Friday, uh, a third of the year, 2022, is almost over. And I put a post out on LinkedIn just a couple of days ago asking how people are doing. Are they happy? And I was happy to see that quite a few of them were pleased with where they have reached. Um, I hope you are some of them. And if you are not satisfied or not happy yet, hang in there or take a risk or reach out to someone, reach out to me if you want, reach out to whoever you like. There's no harm in trying to improve your circumstances rather than just being a slave of the situation. So you can always turn things around. Um, that's the message I believe in myself, and that's the message I give to everyone else as well. Before we continue, I'm going to check my sound. My sound looks okay because there's been some trouble in the past, as you know. Okay, sound looks okay, video looks okay. All right. So today we are on chapter 26 in the order of Revelation. It is Surah Ash-Shams, which means the sun. Um, this is an interesting one because it's one of my favorite chapters. And if you hear it or read it in Arabic or even in Urdu, you'll see how well it's written. It's written in a manner which makes you want to hear more of it. It's very poetic, if I may say so myself. Um, and the message here is divided into two sections. It's only 15 verses, so it's not very long. The first 10 verses are about the yin and the yang, the opposites, the sun and the moon, the night and the day, the earth and the sky, the good and the evil. And it's trying to show how there's distinction between opposites. And the last five verses are about uh, people of bygone eras and how they didn't listen to the message of their messenger, so therefore they suffered a horrible fate or a difficult fate. And it ties into it. So you have this good and evil discussion happening, and then you have five verses based on the people of Thamud. And that's just a way that God explains. That's just a way of writing. Um, Before we dive in, it is the 22nd of April, which means because Ramadan started, as I discussed last week, Ramadan is one of the holiest months in the Islamic calendar. And Ramadan started on the 1st of April or 2nd here and there. So last week we discussed Surah Qadr, which talks about Laylatul Qadr, the night of decree, the night of power, the night of fate. If you recall, if you haven't, please go watch it. It's an interesting video. Those nights are starting now. The 21st, the 23rd, the 25th, 27th, 29th, and maybe the 31st, if it comes to pass. But those nights have started. So now you'll start seeing Muslims spending longer nights in the mosque or even at home, or leaving early from a party and saying, listen, I need to get home because I need to start praying. And fair enough, that is the discipline in Ramadan as well. But it comes to full fruition in these last 10 nights, particularly on the odd ones, 21, 23, 24, 27, 29, 31, if there was a 31. So now you will start seeing it. And to all the Muslims who may be watching or may watch at any given time, I hope your dreams and prayers come true because of the prayer that you'll put into these nights. And like it was discussed last week, one night of Surah Laylatul Qadr is equal to 1,000 nights of prayer, which is 83 years and 4 months. So I hope whoever's praying, as a Muslim, whoever's praying, your dreams come true. But I also believe that God isn't selective. That's my belief. I don't use the Quran for that defense. I use the the attributes of compassion, empathy, humility, love to make my case here. And hear me out before you shoot me down. And the case is this: if you are not a Muslim, and if anything that I have said in the last 26 videos, or anyone else that you've ever heard talk about the month of Ramadan and the last 10 nights and the odd nights, of which one may be the night of fate or the night of power, if you want to pray to your God at that time, thinking that, you know what, maybe, just maybe the Islamic concept of the night of power may be correct. So I'll just pray to my God, or I'll just pray in my temple, or I'll just pray to my belief. Please do it. The goal here, my goal here particularly, is not to prove or argue that Islam is the best religion and so on and so forth. I can't make that argument. I really can't. It's not only because of strong enough evidence or arguments, because a Muslim can argue a point and then a non-Muslim can argue the opposite point. That is not the concern. I don't see the point. I don't see the point of convincing you that your faith and your belief are inferior to my faith and my belief. If you see merit in a religion, go to it. Go to it. It just so happens that a lot of people have come to Islam. It just so happens, but also Christianity, also a few other religions. It has happened. So I'm not here to make that argument. I'm here to read the first book, then the Bible, then the Vedas, then the Old Testament. I'll read all of them because I want to understand God. The name of this vodcast podcast is Finding God. And I'm finding him through religion. And believe you me, once I'm done with the religious books in the next 3-5 years or something, hopefully my channel will still be on. I will be covering other novels, books, novels, theories, just to find God, physics even. So do keep that in mind. But my concern here, or my hope here, is for people to take out time of their busy schedules and indulge in faith, indulge in their belief. Try to find excuses to connect with God. You never know. You might be thinking, oh, okay, Muslims worship extra long these nights. Maybe I'll just try one, but I'm a Hindu. And you try it, and you feel connected to the God that you believe in. You never know. And what if that God is the God? You never know. These aren't things we can prove or quantify. So faith is all about taking leaps of faith, right? So my advice always is not about humans separating themselves into categories, which we do by nature, but as evolved, enlightened beings, we can also say, you know what, we are separate. You have your own way, I have my own way. But what we can do is try to balance it out. So if a Muslim can go to church but worship his God, it's still the same thing, as far as I'm concerned. Fair enough, there's a statue of Christ in front of you, and you're not supposed to worship in front of a statue. I understand all that point. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that it doesn't have to be affected by what's outside. The relationship between man and God or woman and God, or person and God, is inside. And that is what you should be focusing on. But that's my opinion. It's very much possible that imams or priests or pastors or pundits can come and prove me wrong and say you're a horrible person for promoting this message. That's fine. But that's what I proselytize. Okay, so chapter 26, the sun, in that order. So it was the night of power, and now it's the sun, and then there'll be similar chapters later. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, by the sun and its brightness. I love how God starts in this manner. By the sun and its brightness, by the moon as it follows the sun, by the day as it shows up, the sun's brightness, by the night as it conceals it, the sun, by the heaven and him who built it, by the earth and him who spread it. Come on now. Isn't it insane that it's written in Arabic and the translations are in English, but even the English translations are following a poetic rhythm? By the sun and its brightness, by the moon as it follows the sun, by the day as it shows up, the sun's brightness, by the night as it conceals it, the sun. It's still talking about the sun. And then by the heaven and him who built it, by the earth and him who spread it. In Urdu, it's just as incredible. I have to tell you, but I don't want to go through three translations. But in Urdu, it's just as powerful when they talk about. It's so incredible. By nafs, Adam or a person or a soul, and him who perfected him in proportion. So the creation of the human and the soul. Then he showed him what is wrong for him and what is right for him. So this is the discussion I was having in the beginning. So sun, moon, night, day, sky, earth, right and wrong. And now the discussion, and now the center is the human soul, the nafs, the man, the Adam, right at the center, and these antipodes are to either sides of it, and they're pulling in that direction, or man is being pushed in their directions. But that is what the discussion is about. Indeed, he succeeds who purifies his own self, that is, obeys and performs all that God ordered by following the true faith of Islamic monotheism and by doing righteous deeds. Of course, I'm reading the Quran. Of course, the Quran is going to say this. But this verse can apply to any other religion. Indeed, he succeeds who purifies his own self. Self-purification is central to all religions. Like last week, I was talking about self-mastery. One of the first steps to self-mastery is self-discipline, self-purification, and so forth, self-accountability, and so forth. So mastery has a few aspects to it, and purification is one of them. Obeys and performs all that God ordered by following the true faith of Islamic monotheism and by doing righteous good deeds. You can simply replace it. If you don't believe in Islam, you can simply replace Islamic monotheism with your religion. And you can replace the name of God with whichever God you believe in. But the message is the same. Follow the book and perform righteous good deeds. Is it righteous good deeds? Yeah. Righteous good deeds. So far, in the last 26 chapters, what we have covered is that righteous good deeds are typically one that cares for your fellow human being, for yourself, for preservation, for concern, compassion, empathy, sympathy. Those are righteous good deeds. And we've covered that. And I assure you, in most religions, if not all of them, that would be the central argument, always. And indeed, he fails who corrupts his own self, that is, disobeys what God has ordered by rejecting the true faith of Islamic monotheism, or by following polytheism, or by doing every kind of evil, wicked deeds. Now, I assert again, this is the Quran. It's a book of Islam. In Islam, the belief is on monotheism, one God. Therefore, as far as Islam is concerned, a belief in polytheism or pantheism or so many other theisms would not suffice. So I am reading the book of Islam. So that is not something that one should take concern of, have concern with. What I'm getting at here is, if you take the central message is to follow the book and to do good deeds. And to follow the book, I argue that the message is there. But if you're not fully convinced to follow Islam, or if you're happy believing what you believe, keep believing that. But the message still applies. You can still believe in your God, whichever God that is, or multiple gods, and still follow the same argument. That's what I'm saying. We are here trying to find common ground. We're not here to distinguish. There's plenty of religious folk who make a strong reasoning for distinction. I'm not here for distinction. I'm here to find common ground and to understand God, because we all share God. God isn't the exclusive property of one religion or one faith. So, indeed, and indeed, he fails who corrupts his own self, disobeys what God has ordered by rejecting the faith, true faith of Islamic monotheism, and by following polytheism, or by doing every kind of evil, wicked deeds. So that is the Islamic belief. Messages, although in some books messages have been changed. Ali Beg, thank you. Absolutely, the message is the same in some books. There has been alterations. Yes, absolutely, and that is why the discussion is important. And then verse 11 starts with Thamud, people of Thamud, denied their prophet through their transgression, by rejecting the true faith of Islamic monotheism, and by following polytheism, and by committing every kind of sin. This is long before Muhammad, peace be upon him. When the most wicked man among them went forth to kill the she-camel. But the messenger of God, Salih, peace be upon him, said to them, be cautious, fear the evil end. That is the she-camel of God. Do not harm it, and bar it not from having its drink. Fair enough. So a she-camel was assigned value by God at the time, and the people wanted to kill it. And Saleh, the prophet of the time, said, don't do it. Then they denied him and they killed it. So the Lord destroyed them because of their sin and made them equal in destruction. That is, all grades of people, rich and poor, strong and weak. And he, God, feared not the consequences thereof. And that is the end of the chapter. So two sections is divided in. One talks about history of a people who did not follow the laws or the guidances or the rules of their religion, of their prophets, I should say. And the other talks about right and wrong, dark and light. So that is the basic idea. Now, if you take umbrage with the final 5 verses, I understand. If you say, oh, that's not a fate that was deserved, you can make an argument for that. But we don't know the whole story. Maybe they had been disobeying for a long period of time. But as I've said before, sitting in the 21st century, looking at something that happened over 1,000 years ago, one may always question, is it fair for a divine entity, for a God to, as it says, destroy them because of their sin? And and the arguments today are different than they were at that time. And I can tell you how much the world has changed, because I was on YouTube just a couple of days ago, and there's a couple of channels which have videos from the early 1900s. What they've done is they've taken old video recordings in black and white, they've added color to them, and they've adjusted them to 60 frames per second, so it's very smooth. And you watch those videos. I watched one from 1920s New York. I watched one from 1900s. I watched 1960s San Francisco, 1940s Paris. I saw all of them, and I was just watching, and I said, wow, this was 100 years ago. The way people dress, the way people walk, the way people talk, the cars move around as if they were bicycles. There were no indicators, and you can Google these videos on YouTube. Cars are driving and they're just moving around like people are on bicycles. You can't do that today. Roads were very different from what they are now. Carriages were at the center. People's dressing was so incredibly different. And this is New York, Paris, London, Stockholm. I saw all of them. And I was watching it and I said, this was 100 years ago. How much have we changed in 100 years? It's insane. This book is 1,400 years ago. It came out. It was revealed nearly 1,400 years ago. So obviously, living in the 21st century, we would question a lot of the material in the book and say, that doesn't make sense anymore. We do that. You do that even today with things that happened in the 1920s. Even the two major topics of gender and race are currently in political discourse, and we still haven't reached full agreement and satisfaction on them, have we? If we had, everyone would be happy, but we haven't. And that was only 100 years ago. Imagine the messages from 1400 years ago. That is my argument for saying that if you take umbrage with the fact that God enacted destruction upon people who killed the she-camel and didn't follow the commandment, I understand your point of view. But contextually speaking, maybe it made sense. I'm not arguing for it because I can't make that argument, but maybe it was a strong argument at the time, particularly. But also, it ties back to God the merciful and God the disciplinarian, which we've talked about again and again. So that would be the central message that I take from the last 5 verses. You don't have to take issue with the fact that, it was too large or too small a punishment, because as humans, we don't get to judge that. Or if we get to judge it, then we must come up with a better judgment. And I don't think you'll be able to convince a majority of people that your judgment is better. So I'm not taking that chance. But for me, this chapter is all about the opposites. The night and day, the sky and earth, the sun and moon, the right and wrong. For me, that spectrum or that binary is very, very important. The yin and the yang, so to say. And human beings are floating in the middle, and our goal is to float closer to the good and farther from the bad. That's the goal. And if it works, then it works. But I think, as much as I've understood God, which is very little, but as much as I've understood, effort matters, not execution, not outcome. Effort matters. And the fact that you're putting in effort, and it's not just with faith, it's about your job, it's about your relationships, it's about friendships, it's about how you look after your body, what you eat, what you travel, how you indulge your mind. The effort matters. So if you are putting in work to be better, I wouldn't say 100% certain, but I am substantially certain that on the day of judgment, or on the moment of judgment, where man or woman is judged for their deeds, I am, as much as I've understood and felt God, I would make a strong case that you would be judged favorably for trying rather than not trying. Trying matters. One must take the risk of trying and failing rather than not try at all, because you never know where it's going to take you. So trying to follow the righteous path or the rules or the guidance, there's no harm in it. So when I speak to Muslims, including myself, who are struggling with being better at their faith, one point that I make is, you know what, maybe try for a week, try praying for a week, try fasting for 1 month, try giving charity, try being nice to the other person, try reading the Quran once a week, and so forth. And it ever so happens that ends up becoming their lifestyle, because they try and they might feel good about it, or it may lead to something that's good for them, and they end up doing it. So with the discussion of antipodes and opposites and binaries, the goal is to float in the middle and try to make sure that you're closer to the good than the bad. That's all we can do. And you'll never reach either one of them. You'll never turn into Satan or Gabriel. That's never going to happen. But what you can do is you can try to make sure that most of your actions are closer to what's good, what's righteous. Thank you so much. 25 minutes have flown by, and I didn't even realize it. Thank you so much. Join me again next week for another session. I think it's Surah Buruj, if I'm not mistaken. And have a wonderful weekend and have a wonderful Friday. Take care.